Good evening, and welcome to the council meeting of May 26, 2025. This meeting is being live streamed on the Town of Kentville's YouTube channel. I call this meeting to order. I respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional and unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq people. We honor their deep connection to the land, past, present, and future. I also recognize and honor the contributions and heritage of African Nova Scotians, whose ancestors have shaped and enriched this community for generations. The chair notes we do have quorum this evening. Are there any conflict of interest issues that council should be made aware of before the meeting commences? There being none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. We've been provided with a proposed agenda. CAO, do you have any changes to the agenda?
Just a very brief in-camera, just follow up probably from an email today about potential sale 376 Main Street, just what, some issues around that, just to for clarification.
Okay. All right, any other additions from council? Okay, and seconded by Councillor Savage and Deputy Mayor Kroll. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. We have a couple of sets of minutes here. The first set is from the April 28th, 2025 council meeting. They've been distributed for your approval. Are there any changes to this set of minutes? There being none, we will accept those. We also have a set of minutes from the special meeting of council on May 21st, 2025. Are there any changes to this set of minutes? There being none, okay. We'll move on now to recommendations and reports. The first item is the proposed telecommunications tower. So at the May 2025 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Darren Hsu presented the federal government process for site location and construction of a 30-meter cell tower at 314 Main Street, which is the Bell Canada parking lot, to improve coverage in the valley and in this region. So we have two recommendations coming out of this report. One is that recommendation is that council direct the CAO to consider a more robust telecommunications facilities policy during the plan review process. So moved by Councillor Savage and seconded by Deputy Mayor Kroll. Is there any discussion on this? Councillor Baker.
I'm just wondering, having spoken to other councillors in other municipal agencies about this kind of thing, it doesn't seem that we have much input into where Industry Canada wants to put a tower. I think it's a non-issue because we don't have any jurisdiction here.
Thank you. I am going to chime in real quickly. I think that I'm going to kind of agree with what you said. I think right now I would probably propose that we leave this alone until we do a full update of our land use bylaw and planning documents, because
that's what the intent of the motion is.
Right.
Yeah.
Not to do right now?
Yeah. Or when we do the plan review, which is
during the plan review. Okay.
Yeah.
That would make sense. We will, to do it then, because as Councillor Baker's already said, they're going to put it where they want to put it, right? So, Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Through to the CAO. When this review is done, I would like to see the specific distances between the tower and the apartment building, which is at the top of the Bell building, and the specific distances to the residents' property. So if they were out mowing their lawn, how far is it from the site that they're going to put it on? Because I looked at the map and there is no specific distances. And so, they're saying 30 meters from the closest residential and 60 meters from the nearest public road. I'd like to see those distances measured out.
Yeah, but this motion is directing for the plan review, which is later,
Yep.
and it'll already have been fully approved by then by Industry Canada.
Yep.
So it's just, there'll probably be some input, some information gathering at that point to say, well, there may be cases where it's less than that now, and do we still want to have things like that within our bylaw?
Yes, exactly. And
Yep.
as I was reading Chester's, and theirs is 100 meters, so.
From what I understand, from what I've understood a little bit about this, that we can have a really good, policy, and at the end of the day, though, they take that back, and hopefully they're gonna respect it, but they have the ultimate decision at the end of the day, and even if we change things now, they've already started their process, so we can't go now and change ours for
They-
this particular
we have to give them-
situation, right?
From what I read, we have to give them a letter of conveyance to the ISED and, saying that we've upheld what they're doing, or we can give her a letter of non-compliance, and they have to make an effort to meet our standards. That's what I read. So it's not like we don't have any say. We do have some say, because our letter doesn't have to be one of approval. It can be one of, no, we don't think you've met the requirements.
Yes,
Yeah,
you?
Through you, Your Worship, so the Director of Planning would have to issue non-compliance because it doesn't comply. So it's not a matter of that being decided tonight. It does not comply, and so that would be the letter coming forward from him or from the development officer to Industry Canada would clearly state that it's not in compliance.
And then it's on Industry Canada to meet the compliance, to rectify.
It's on them to consider it.
Yes.
Yeah. But at least we would have done our due diligence.
Yeah.
Councillor Hamilton.
And so just for clarity on this, I may have missed it, but they're trying to increase the cell coverage that's on Park Street downtown with it?
Well, the area at large too, right? It's gonna
Like,
read out quite a
because
bit.
downtown, there's no cell issue. Wouldn't it make more sense to put this in the industrial park?
Oh, I
when
don't
that's where
know.
the issues
Yeah,
is?
I'm not sure. I'm not an engineer to know where to put it, but, yeah, it's the community at large, not just the one spot. And they own that site, so there's probably reasoning behind that too. But the first motion is just, because the next one's coming up in a minute. The first motion is simply to, direct the CAO to, when we do a planning review, to have our policy updated to reflect more of what we think, so. And then the second one, we can talk about step forward. Councillor Andrew.
My question, maybe I should wait, but I really, I'll say it. Just to echo what Councillor Maxwell has said, it feels like it would be remiss of this council to not, at the very least, we don't, even though I think it's laughable, the idea that we would say no to Industry Canada, the reality is we have no ultimately they have the authority. But I just wonder if there couldn't be a letter representing the people of this town. I've had very few conversations, because not that many people are aware of it, but my feeling is that the people that I have had discussions with, the idea of a 9-story radio tower, kind of thing in our town seems a little bit shocking and a little bit unbelievable to people. And I just, anyway, I would certainly support and endorse, a letter coming from our mayor, saying, there are concerns, and we are moving to revise policy around this. But that the people of, and I don't know, because I can't speak for everyone, because I've only had a few conversations, but the conversations I've had have been consistently jaw-dropping with people. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on this?
Yeah, they're just for clarification, their public consultation ads are going out now. There's a mail out is actually going out to within wherever they have to do the prescribed. So anyone within that can comment, so, and they're encouraged to, copy our development officer as well as part of that, so that we'll also be receiving the commentary.
Just before you speak, Councillor Maxwell, are you gonna speak to because this motion is just about directing the CAO to eventually, they'll work on a more robust policy. That's all we're deciding right now. It's nothing to do with Val, we want a stronger policy. That's the only thing that votes for. The next motion, okay, all right.
Okay, so what doesn't make any sense to me is why we even have a policy if it's not going to be followed by Industry Canada. What is the point of going through the process, having a policy, if our hands are tied? So, you know, I think the public would need to know on this issue, if it's true that our hands are totally tied, that needs to be made known. If our hands are totally tied, then why are we doing a policy? And I would like a response to that question, because it seems like we're just spinning our wheels and wasting our time, and it's making the public believe that we do have some kind of say in this, and when we really maybe don't have any say. And I think that needs to be looked into. So,
I guess the way I interpreted it is that whatever your policy is, they're gonna take it back and consider it in their decision, right? I know it doesn't sound fair, and I can tell by your face, but that's the way I interpret it,
but
that
they're gonna consider it, but they're also gonna ignore it.
we don't know that, but I guess
That's
ultimately
what-
they have their
that's what
decision.
we have no choice in this means to me, is you can have a policy, Kentville, but you have no choice in what we do. So, and the people can come out and they can speak to it, but we're not gonna listen to what they have to say. We're just gonna pretend that we're gonna listen to what they have to say. To me, that makes no sense, and so I think we need more information.
Well, this one is just to tighten up that policy that they may not listen to, but, yeah.
This allows you to get that more, this
Right.
motion allows for the gathering of more information.
So that if it happened again, you know, at some point, you'd have an even tighter policy to say, how come you didn't listen to this, right? But,
If I could just make one comment from a legal perspective, I'm not going to be here long enough to make it worth raising it. This process is an opportunity for council to be involved in providing feedback as to what the decision might be. So to what the mayor just said, right? This is your only opportunity. If council chooses not to be involved, then the applicant has to try to gather public feedback in any event. It's just a question of whether you want to have a process and thus try to have an impact that may differ. Your approach might be more comprehensive than their approach, for example. It's to Councillor Maxwell's point, you don't know what impact, if any, it might have, but in a lot of ways, it's not so different than somebody coming to this group. Right? I mean, the difference is that it's an administrator as opposed to an elected person making the decision. But they do have to seek feedback from the public before they do it. So you folks get to make the decision whether or not you want to be involved. And as the CAO said earlier, right now, your MPS is very clear about this particular location. And so with this particular location, you could hear from the public, but the Director of Planning and I have had a discussion about what do you say ultimately, other than it's inconsistent with our MPS and LUB. Mm-hmm. But that's this particular site, right? You might hear from the public and they might support it. I suspect you think not, but they might. So that I think is the crux of the issue, and so I just don't want you to not want to be involved because you feel like you don't ultimately have much, if any, of a say. I think you look at it and say, do we want to be involved in case they want to listen to us?
thank you. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to the solicitor. That certainly makes a lot of sense. I think when we look at policy GD 16, it's very limited, right? I mean, it's a very, very limited policy. And then when we go down further, the telecommunication facility states the 4.1.29 strongly discourage in residential and general commercial. So I think to the solicitor's point, this gives us an opportunity as a council to hear from the public and to create a more robust directive bylaw around this. And so I will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call for the question. That council direct the CAO to consider a more robust telecommunications facilities policy during the plan review process. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. The second recommendation is that council maintain reliance on the ISED process for the current proponent. Someone could move that. Councillor Andrew, and a seconder. Councillor Savage. Any discussion on that? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. So in terms of the public input or the public participation piece, it's kind of sketchy as to what that looks like. So through you to the CAO or to the solicitor, what does that look like? How involved are the public?
So in this one, the ad is going out that the public has the opportunity to comment by June 25th, 2025.
Okay.
And if they can address questions directly to the consultant for Bell, or and for input, they can have their say by comments to the same person, to our development officer, or to Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada in Dartmouth.
So there is a direct contact, a direct representative from Bell?
Yes.
Okay, that's appointed to this.
Well, it's to the Bell representative, but it looks like they're with a different firm, but they're representing Bell in the matter.
Okay, yeah, well, that's helpful for the public.
So it's all, you got it.
Yes, no, I'm fine, yeah.
So it's just for clarity, it's all the advertised and it's all writing in. There's no.
And then
Yeah.
Bell has 14 days to acknowledge receipt of anything they receive.
Okay,
All reasonable and relevant concerns will be addressed by Bell within 60 days. Landowners, then if they respond, then landowners have 21 days to respond back to Bell. And then step 7 is a summary of the consultation shared with the land use authority and request to submit it for concurrence.
so if I may, they can't start any of the construction until all of these time spans have lapsed?
That's would be my guess, best guess. I'm not with Industry Canada.
I agree with that answer.
That's what it says in the documents,
Yeah.
that they can't move forward.
Well, I know, but, yeah. Anyway, okay.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Councillor Maxwell.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering if we can clarify what that motion says. Like, I don't really understand. Does that mean we're just going to solely adopt?
We're gonna follow their process for this particular application.
Okay, because I have concerns that they're basing their standards on 2009 studies. And so that's a concern to me, because I would think in that amount of years, there should be changes. There should be new information. So I just want to put that out there.
So then this would be the opportunity, I guess, for the input. You know, if we decide to write a letter, I guess, we can submit that too from council.
Yeah.
But the process is up to them, so,
Yep.
yeah.
I think they might have to explain things a bit more.
Any other discussion on this? I'll call for the question then. The council maintain reliance on the ISED process for the current proponent. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried.
And just again, for clarification, we received one of the notices because we're in close
Right.
proximity, so we can reply not only as a council, but as a landowner.
Okay, good. The next item is the Stormwater Management Master Plan Report. At the May 12th, 2025 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Bell presented the Public Works Report for April 2025 and asked Council to complete follow-up from the April 15th special meeting of Council regarding the Stormwater Management Master Plan and to formally receive this report. The recommendation would read that Council accept the Stormwater Management Master Report from Dillon Consulting as presented on April 15th, 2025. Moved by Councillor Savage and seconded by Deputy Mayor Kroll. Any discussion on this? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. And I alluded to this when Director Bell formally presented the report to be accepted by council or at CAC, that I had hoped or hope that we would be able to do some innovative thinking as we move forward with this plan. And not that I would think that it will be shelved, because I'm sure that it won't, because as a council we'll be on top of it. But there were some innovative types of things moving forward that there were recommendations in there. So I just want to keep that at the forefront. I don't necessarily think it needs to be a standing, sort of a standing topic on future agendas, but I just wonder what the best way to keep this top of mind and keep the innovation going on this plan. And maybe that's more a question through you to the CAO.
Well, hopefully you'll be getting your monthly reports from Engineering and Public Works. And part of that should be what has been implemented today, what's being worked on.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ready for the question. That Council accept the Stormwater Management Master Report from Dillon Consulting as presented on April 15th, 2025. Voting is now open. And voting is now closed and the motion is carried. We now move on to council reports and we will start with Councillor Andrew.
All right, everything's there. I've tried to make my report as brief as possible. Just two highlights just for other members of council. If you go to the NSFM website, you can see the content, the PDF files of the NSFM. And a particular interest, I thought were good, Cox and Palmer, their overview of municipal government and how that functions and why it functions as it does is quite good, and some good reminders in there for councillors as well. And then it may seem, a bit redundant to hear about navigating social media, but the social media, there were some concurrent sessions, and so navigating social media was not one I attended, but it's a really good little snapshot. If you look at that is, if you're just wondering how, which we do sometimes, members of the public too, but particularly in this role, you see things on social media that sometimes maybe they're not accurate or they're not kind, and sometimes we need to be reminded that less is more when it comes to social media. So those were things I appreciated. There seems like I attended a number of events, but it really, it just felt like the month was very fast. But there's a lot going on, and I remarked on that to our solicitor when we were walking up the stairs, that there's a lot happening, and that is to get things moving. And it does feel in the town now like there's a sense of that with not just the work that's happening to our roads, but there's a sense that the work that's happening behind the scenes here with us and with staff as well, things are moving, and there's a positive sense in the air, and that's a great thing. So I'll share that. That's it for me.
Okay. Any questions for Councillor Andrew based on his report? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor, through you to Councillor Andrew. So having sat on the REMO committee for a number of years, I'm always very interested in the vulnerable person registry program, and I'm looking at the registrations, and it's from 2023 to 2025, it's only gone from 32 to 56. So I know Dan mentions in there about a community of champions to increase awareness. What does that look like? I can't think of who else is on Remo.
Sam is on Remo as
Oh,
well.
okay, yeah.
As you know, Dan does wonderful, his meetings are thorough,
Yeah.
and, in terms of community champions, there's a couple of, I think the focus of that was, there's a couple of groups, and including there's a new group that's kind of beginning to build here. Is that what that was tied to? Sorry, I'm
Just
through
hold
the
on.
mayor.
I'm gonna put your mic on so you can answer the question, yeah.
I just wanna
Yeah,
be.
no, that was the Rubicon.
That was
I
the
think you're
Rubicon
thinking,
group, is
and
that not?
I don't, they're not connected.
Okay, I will say though that I thought those numbers were extremely low, and part of the discussion at Remo was, I know that when, during COVID, because I was part of a food response group, that it was surprisingly low, the numbers. When you would call areas, particularly areas that don't have police departments or town councils or village commissions, you'd call and say, you know, and fire departments were oftentimes the go-to. So I talked to fire departments, you know, across the mountain, in churches and others, and almost without exception, you know, there'd be somebody on the phone, and it'd be the fire chief of some little department, and, you know, and he'd say, hey, Ethel, what about Gloria down the road? Is she good? Or is she taken care of? And you would find out, yep, no, everybody else seems good. We don't need any food deliveries up here. So I think a lot of it is still happening very much on a community level, but I can ask that question to Dan. I can't recall what the community champion topic was, so I'll hand that over to you, Sam.
Yeah, there was a little bit of conversation, we didn't really do much with it at that time, but it was, an issue, and I think moving forward, we're probably gonna spend a little bit more time on that. We only had 2 committee meetings so far, but, it was definitely a concern within that committee, so.
Well, if I may, one of the
Okay,
things
you're
that was
on.
brought up. Oh.
You're on. No,
Okay.
you're on now.
One of the things that I think we discussed was, you know, just better ways of communicating with seniors, you know, things that attach to their tax bills, and there was some discussion around that. How do we get the word out that if you're alone and isolated, or ever in a situation where you need emergency help beyond what others may need, that we would get to you? So, you know, Dan he's so proactive, and we are, compared to other, I can't imagine that any Remo is better outfitted than ours, so.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Baker.
Report time?
Yes.
Yeah. Councillor Andrew and I attended, along with the deputy clerk, West on April 30th to May 2nd, the NSFM Spring Council in Truro. And Councillor Andrew attended a couple of different sessions than I did. My report is now attached in the meeting documents. I apologize for the delay in getting that to you. It was sitting in my drafts file. I guess what was on my mind there was thinking about how taking in how other municipal units do business, asking us, you know, the question, looking at everything we do we want to be in this business? Making sure that we're reflecting on what we do as we build a strategic plan towards the vision of this council. And I was asking other folks, what do you guys do for strategic planning or strategic priorities? Different people have different words, and it was great to be able to network with folks and share those ideas and gain some research and some focus from that. I guess my report is pretty, you know, it's got lots of notes for you to read if you're interested, as far as community engagement and how to do that without taxing everybody. Sorry, not taxing, over engaging them. Sometimes we always go back to the same people and hear the same voices all the time. What I took away from the Nova Scotia Co-op Council was they're coming up with affordable housing options, and their primary mantra, if you will, is it's about the mission, it's not about the ROI. So I think at the same time we're thinking about, do we want to be in this business? We also want to be in the business of providing services that don't necessarily have ROI as their intention. So yeah, it's all there. Thank you for your attention and for your patience with me.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Councillor Baker. Any questions for Councillor Baker based on his report? Okay, we'll move on to Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Thank you, Your Worship. Under my highlights, Mayor Zebian and I attended the opening of the Shade Gazebo, which was generously donated by the Canadian Dermatology Association. That was a fun time. We also met with the newly engaged CEO, Chris McNeil, so that was also a very interesting evening to spend with him. Regarding my committees, the Investment Advisory Committee met in April. Councillor Savage will give a detailed review on the fund portfolio, but I will mention that the fund advisor gave an update on the current environment, citing that there wasn't a lot of change from last month as far as the economy goes. U.S. trade agreement negotiations with China at that time were looking positive. He indicated that our portfolio contains a high-quality subset of the market, and we continue to manage our risk regularly. Kentville Business Community was my next meeting that I attended this month. We welcomed Jillian York as the Promotions and Communications Coordinator. Under the committee reports, they tabled their financial statements for 24-25, and they were approved by the committee. The KBC ended the year with a small surplus of $3,049. Their annual general meeting will be held on June the 5th at 5 p.m. at Maritime Express Cidery. And they have submitted an application to the Tourism Digital Assistance Program Communities, or TDAP, to support downtown Kentville rebranding. They made some decisions. The financial statements, as I mentioned, were unanimously approved, and the approval of the strategic plan has been tabled to next month's meeting. And you can see at the bottom of my page the events and the other meetings that I've attended. So that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Deputy Mayor Kroll? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to the Deputy Mayor. The new position, I guess it wasn't a new position on KBC for the Communications Coordinator?
No.
Is that full-time or is it part?
I think it's more part-time, but she's certainly doing an awful lot of work at the front end. She's building a lot of their communications up. There's a lot of emails going out to businesses to be part of their program to get the news out of what businesses are in downtown Kentville. Okay. So there's a lot of work going on.
That's great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell, or Councillor Hamilton.
So my report is from April the 22nd to May the 20th. And I think, I'm not sure if the REMO was on my last report or if I just missed it from this one. So it wasn't included in that, but it's been a busy month. There was the home show and the spike run that I enjoyed going to, and it was Police Week a couple weeks ago, so that was a great start off with the coffee with cops. For my committees haven't been as busy. I did do the environmental task team. We had our Quest energy mapping workshop, which I found a really good workshop. It was very interesting and quite a learning, just with the energy usage around town. A lot of work went into that from the town of Kentville staff, and just looking at sustainability initiatives. Other than that, it's been busy with a few other meetings, and I'll be happy to take any of your questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Hamilton? I guess there's none. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Since my last report, I have attended the April 28th council meetings and the public hearing on subdivision bylaw change. I did miss the May 12th CAC meeting and the public hearing for Hebrew Development Land Use, as I was out of town on vacation. For my committees, or some of my committees, the Heritage Committee met on May the 15th. I must say this was a very productive meeting and kind of exciting, because we took the time to go through. We had a great big map of the town, and using the brain power of our local historian, Louis Comeau, we were able to identify 12 sites at that meeting, or locations, for possible heritage designation in our town. That's only scratching the surface, so this is something that's ongoing that we're going to keep working on as we work our way towards developing a registry. We will, in the future, bring several of these sites forward for approval by council, and hopefully we'll be able to do some of those soon. A few locations are very historic and interesting. Some of the examples include the site of the last hanging in Kentville, which is a location. The Kentville Heritage Center, of course, as we know, which is the last bit of railway heritage that we have in town. Everything else was torn down. 2 bridges on the Harvest Moon Trail belong to CNCP Rail, and so we felt that those should be designated. And Horton Corner, the former name for Kentville before our inauguration, we think that that corner should actually be identified where it is. And of course, Oak Grove Cemetery that contains many former outstanding residents of the town of Kentville. So those are just a few, and we'll continue with the work on this. The committee also looks forward to developing a map of Kentville with all the designated sites that can be put into the Visitors Information Center and the Heritage Center for tourism in our town, kind of like a walking map or a tour map of the town of Kentville listing these various sites. And we're also intent on developing that registry of historical landmarks for the town. Student bursary meeting committee will be meeting soon, and probably early June. And high school students from the town of Kentville should fill out the application form, which can be obtained, I'm going to say, at your school. I'm not sure that we put them in the school, but they should be there. And from our Deputy Clerk, Jennifer West, at Town Hall. And I believe the last date for submission is May the 31st. And then we will, the committee will meet and go through those. And the names will be brought forward to council after graduation takes place. The Inclusion and Accessibility Committee, again, this committee has not met since February 21st. This is an important committee, and I want to encourage the chair to get us back to work as soon as possible. My suggestion is, if this cannot happen, I suggest that that committee be disbanded and a new committee struck. This work should not be delayed any longer, in my opinion. And I didn't put down the Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition, which is another committee that I represent for the town. And I believe, after consulting with some people at County of Kings and here on our staff, that it's going to be quite a while before this committee gets going again. So it could be a couple of years. Right now, I think they're trying to work out how to keep the trail consistent, the surfacing kind of consistent, the cutting consistent through the length of the trail, with the town of Kentville looking after our section, town of Wolfville looking after theirs, New Minas, and then hopefully Kings County can work out something with the trail groups and looking after their own. So I've already informed the mayor that I guess that committee will be on hold for a while. So, and events and meetings, the home show at Centennial Arena on August 27th. I really enjoyed going to that. That's always a great event, and I picked up a couple of tips, and some people are coming by the house to do some quoting and so on. And May 18th, the Holly Festival, fantastic event. If people haven't gotten out to that one, that's really important that we should, you should get out and see that, because the colors and the enthusiasm is just amazing. So, and that's my report.
Thank you very much. And just to clarify, the deadline for the student bursaries is May 9th. May 9th, right? Yes.
Okay. So it's all gone by, okay.
It's gone by, yeah. Yeah, I remember reading that online, so.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
what was in the meeting, the policy was May 31st, I believe, so.
Okay,
I
any
can only go by the policy.
questions for Councillor Maxwell? Councillor Savage?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you to Councillor Maxwell, or to you, the Mayor. With regards to the Inclusion and Accessibility Committee, Under committees of council, the chair has to have, is it a monthly meeting or is it a quarterly meeting? Or, I'm just thinking if meetings aren't being held, then let's get them being held again. And like, when I was on that committee, which is a while ago now, I believe it was monthly. So,
We will, yeah, we're working towards that to get her back up and set up. I'm gonna follow up tomorrow with them again, so,
thank you.
yeah, all right. All right, there's no more questions. Councillor Savage, you're on.
Okay, thank you. So a couple of the highlights, I said the last month, this month has been a little bit heavier, getting into budget and audit for town of Kentville and also regional sewer operating capital. So there was an investment advisory committee on May the 14th. Just have some commentary there around the US, talking about inflation being down and unemployment being down. And from the perspective of our investment advisor, things are working towards where they want them to be in the US, and as such we are leaning more into the US markets, ever so cautiously. I have made that note. Inversely, here in Canada, our inflation was up slightly, as is our unemployment. So those were just some comments from our investment advisor as it relates to our portfolio. At May 13th, the portfolio stood just north of 14 million, so our strategy is working. The money weighted net was 1.022 against the balanced income CAD of 1.53, but that was as of April the 30th. The majority of our portfolio is in energy, materials, and of course financials. And the deputy mayor also made comments around that committee, so thank you for that. Second committee I have is regional sewer. There was no meeting the past month. I know there's been quite a bit of discussion and meetings with regards to the regional sewer lagoon smell. The technical committee has met a few times, and I understand the CAO has also met with the County of Kings, and their consultants have identified a lack of oxygen in the primary treatment lagoon as the main cause of the odor this spring. So I know that work is being done, meetings are being held, and consultants are being consulted to see what we can do to have this smell dissipate. Board of Police Commissioners was on May the 9th. The operating budget was proposed and passed unanimously, whereby the Board of Police Commissioners would recommend same to council. We see benefits being the largest increase as per collective agreements, and some other line items worth noting were operations, communications, dispatch. The strat plan was introduced to council at the last meeting and it was well received, and discussions around staying on track where the town is concerned was also well received. The chief spoke of the unhoused and the impact that this is having on our community at large. I attended a number of events and meetings. I too would agree the Holly Color Festival was well attended and very colorful, and lots of great vendors there, and lots of folks in our multicultural community coming together to enjoy it. And I even saw the mayor there with his kids getting lots of chalk. Oh yes, May 6th, that was the Rotary Charter Night. I attended that, of course, being a Kentville Rotarian, and Chief Marty Smith was awarded the Paul Harris Fellow Award, and it is a most prestigious award for his participation in the community. So we wish him congratulations on that highest of honor. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Savage? I guess nobody's got any questions, so I'll move on to my report. May 1st, I met with the Intermunicipal Service Agreement gang with King's Transit, and they reported last week that 4 vehicles were broken down, and it led to a few temporary route closures. Their fleet condition remains a challenge, as several buses are out of service for repair or inspection, so they're still planning for future replacements, but they are operating at a full staff level. We met here May 21st for the draft operational budget. I also attended the Kentville Home Show, and that was a great turnout, as some of you have mentioned. The only downfall was took my 9-year-old and she kept saying to me, "Do you have to stop and talk to everybody?" On the 28th, we had the subdivision bylaw amendment meeting. And on the also had the, some of the highlights from that, also from the April 28th council meeting where the, working towards increasing our residential density in the C1 and C3 zones. May 6th, I attended the ribbon cutting at the skate park, as Deputy Mayor Cole talked about, and that was exciting. Another great addition to our facilities. You know, we put these things in like skate parks, and then staff keeps enhancing them and making them better. So that was great. May 12th was one of the highlights of the month. Councillor Savage was there. I went to Rotary lunch, and we had a great speech from Mayor Corkum of the county and former Mayor of Kentville, Mayor Corkum, on his life thus far. And I have to say, it's been a couple weeks and it's still in my head. So good job there, Mayor Corkum. We had the site plan approval hearing on May 12th. And again, you guys have mentioned that on May 15th, we met with incoming CAO, Mr. McNeil. I want to talk about the Holly Festival. I know you guys have mentioned it. I got a wet eye. This was a great day because, and I thought of myself as a kid there. I took my 4 kids and my wife didn't go. And when I took her home, she wasn't really thrilled with them because my 9-year-old looked like that character from the Wicked movie. She was totally green, hair, body, and everything. I mean, we were shocked to the maximum, but they had a great afternoon. And I thought about them. And when I was that age, you know, I went to Ellie Shaw and I was the only kid that took olives and pita bread to school. So I was a little weird, right? But now you see so much culture in Kentville, and it's just a great feeling when you see, you know, different people choosing to live here and picking our place to be part of. So that was a very special day. And then my next, probably the highlight of the month really was last week. We had the grade 7 students here from KCA. They wanted to learn more about municipal politics because they had been in a year where there was a provincial election, federal, and of course our municipal one. And we had, I think, 27 students here. Lindsay was here, and Julie Ogilvie was here from KBC. Great presentation, and then it was question time. And so one little girl, I'm going to call her out, her name's Charlotte, and she said, "I know your daughter." She said, "I have 2 questions." And I think her first question was, "Do you control the holidays? How many holidays are in the year?" And I said, "No, I don't do that." She said, "Okay, what about the time that we can get dismissed from school? Can you change that?" And I said, "No, I can't change that either." So, you know, these kids had a lot of fun. They got a tour of the building. The staff was great. They met many of them. They went down to the archives and they saw books that were 120 years old. So a lot of fun in the vault down there. And then on the 24th, which was a couple days ago, I was invited to Horton to watch the Cantamara Youth Choir perform Enchanted. And I have to say, that was an amazing performance. It's neat to see how much the arts do for our children. So that was exciting. And then had a lot of meetings with our acting CAO this month and conversation with the newly hired CAO. And I just want to also wish, I went and saw her the other day, Kentville resident Winnie Palmer, a very happy 100th birthday. She turned 100 last week, and I presented her a certificate from the town of Kentville. And she wanted to let me know that she was born where the Lions Club is on River Street. That's where her house was. So she's in town here, and she's very happy. She got a certificate from Mark Carney as well, from the Prime Minister, and she's very happy. So that's my report. Any questions? Okay, so those reports are accepted and filed. We'll now move on to old business. From the CAO, we have legal cost updates, or an update.
Yes, there was summary information. So this is for the full fiscal year, 24-25, subject to audit, of course. And you know, there's a couple negative numbers there, but that's because they got moved out into dealing with costs of acquiring property, costs or of disposing property end up being moved over to the capital fund. So it was a fairly, so it's about 130,000, as you can see in total across the various departments there for the year. If there are questions, be happy to try to answer them.
Okay. Any questions for the CAO? I guess there's no questions. Okay, we'll move on now to new business. Citizen appointment to the Water Commission and Source Water Protection Advisory Group. So as stated in Policy G81, Committees of Council, Council has the right to appoint citizens to each committee based on the required skills and experience needed. For the Kentville Water Commission and the Kentville Source Water Protection Advisory Group, after recruitment for members through social media and on the website, Mr. Mike Cameron has volunteered to sit on these committees. So the recommendation would be that Council appoint Mike Cameron to the Kentville Water Commission and the Kentville Source Water Protection Advisory Group for a 2-year term of service and reviewed annually. Councillor Savage and a seconder, Councillor Baker. Any discussion on this? We'll call for the question that Council appoint Mike Cameron to the Kentville Water Commission and the Kentville Source Water Protection Advisory Group for a 2-year term of service and reviewed annually. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed and the motion is carried. We now move on to, well, we have one piece of correspondence in your package, and then we will move now on to public comments. I'll invite members of the public up to the podium to speak. You'll have 3 minutes. State your name and talk away. I guess nobody wants to speak, so we will now, Council, we're required to go into an in-camera session. We have one piece on that agenda that we're going to discuss, so I'll take a motion to go into a closed session. Councillor Maxwell, seconder. Councillor Savage. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried.